The coast slept under a gray dawn, the air thick with salt and the scent of dying spices. Elias Kande stood in the doorway of his crumbling warehouse, watching the tide creep closer to his debts. He had once dreamed of building an empire, ships on every horizon, his name carved into ledgers of gold. But empires built on pride crumble quietly. And pride was all he had left. Inside, sacks of pepper lay moldy, their perfume soured by months of rain. His assistant, Bako, entered, eyes low, voice trembling. "Sir," he said, "the creditors are coming again. They say tomorrow they'll take the last ship." Elias said nothing. He only stared at the empty scales on his table, symbols of dreams unbalanced. Outside, the rival merchant Okoro laughed with his men, their voices slicing through the market air. "Still chasing fortune, Elias?" Okoro called out. "You'll find her faster if you stop running after her shadow." Elias forced a smile. "Maybe. But when I catch her, I'll buy your laughter too." The crowd chuckled. But when they turned away, Elias's grin dissolved. His hands trembled as he touched the cracked ledger on his desk. Numbers, endless, mocking numbers, told the story of a man sinking. That night, thunder rolled above the sea. Elias sat by the last burning lantern, the smell of wet paper thick around him. He opened a chest of memories, letters, relics, and an old amulet once worn by his mother. It was carved from dark wood, its edges etched with ancestral symbols. When his fingers brushed it, the air in the room shifted. A faint whisper passed through the storm outside, soft, feminine, almost tender. "Elias." He froze. "Who's there?" he whispered. No answer. Only the creak of wood and the flicker of the flame. He closed his fist around the amulet, pressing it to his chest until it bit the skin. "If you can hear me," he whispered into the dark, "help me. Please." Lightning flashed across the window, illuminating the ledger, every debt glimmering like a scar. When morning came, he walked through the marketplace with a single purpose burning behind his tired eyes. He followed the narrow path that wound past the mangroves, to the edge of the old forest, where a hut sat surrounded by charms and bones. SFX, birds cawing, wooden wind chimes rattling softly. Mama Abibi, the town's oldest herbalist, looked up as he approached. Her skin shimmered like aged bronze, her voice was smoke and honey. "You carry the scent of desperation," she said. "What is it you seek?" Elias bowed slightly. "Wisdom. And help. I need to speak to my ancestors." Mama Abibi's eyes darkened. "Why call the dead when the living have not finished speaking to you?" "I've tried everything," Elias said. "If they can help me, I'll do whatever they ask." She stirred the pot before her, the fire beneath it glowing green. "Whatever they ask," she repeated. "Be careful. The ancestors give, but they also take. When they answer, don't speak your name too loud, they might claim it." Elias nodded. "I'm not afraid." "You should be," she said. Then she reached into a woven basket and drew out a small clay bowl filled with red ash, pressing it into his hands. "When the moon rises and the wind turns from the sea, light a candle and place this in a circle of salt. Call them, but remember, they remember everything." He turned to go. Behind him, Mama Abibi whispered a prayer in a tongue the world had almost forgotten. "Ancestors, guard the foolish one. He knows not what door he knocks upon." Music, thunder rolling in distance, rain beginning to fall. Elias returned to his warehouse as the storm began again. The night sky split open with lightning, waves crashed against the shore like beasts at the gate. He set the bowl in the center of the floor, the candle beside it, and the amulet on top. The flame flickered, blue for a heartbeat, then turned red. The shadows grew longer, reaching, twisting, alive. He could hear them, faint voices beneath the rain, whispering in a language older than his blood. He swallowed hard. Ancestors of my blood, those who walked before me, hear my plea. I ask for fortune, for my trade to live again. I offer anything. The candle bent sideways as if caught by invisible wind. Then a voice, deep and echoing, filled the space. Anything, it said. Words are easy. What part of yourself will you give for gold? Elias's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Take what you must. Just leave me my breath. Another voice joined, softer, feminine, cold. Breath is borrowed from us. We grant you wealth beyond measure. But each sunrise, a sliver of your soul returns to us. He closed his eyes. I accept. When he opened his eyes, the amulet had crumbled into dust. In its place lay a coin, black as midnight, warm to the touch. He picked it up, and for a moment, he saw faces swirling across its surface. His ancestors. Watching. Waiting. Then the whispers faded, and the storm went still. Dawn broke soft and golden. The storm was gone, and the air smelled of new beginnings. Elias woke on the cold floor of his warehouse, the candle long dead, ashes scattered like gray snow. But there in the circle of salt lay the black coin, pulsing faintly against the first light. He picked it up. It was warm and alive. Outside, the harbor was in chaos, men shouting, ropes snapping, gulls screaming above the waves. Then Bako's voice pierced through the noise. Sir! Sir, come quickly. You must see this. Elias followed him to the docks, and there, rising from the fog like a miracle, was his ship, the Marianne. The same vessel he'd lost months ago, declared swallowed by the sea. Its sails were torn but glowing in the morning sun, its deck stacked high with spice, gold, and fabrics richer than his dreams. He staggered forward. How is this possible? He whispered. The captain, pale and shaking, bowed. We were lost, sir. But last night, there were lights over the waves. We followed them home. Elias touched the wood of the ship. It felt solid. Real. And yet, the moment his hand met the railing, a shiver ran through him. A memory slipping away, faint as smoke. For a second, he could not recall the sound of his mother's laugh. But the joy drowned the unease. His fortune had returned. And so began the season of wealth. The marketplace of Calabia roared with his name. Ships lined up for his signature, foreign traders bowed low to greet him. Spices from his stalls perfumed the air, clove, cinnamon, saffron. Children sang songs about his good luck. Okoro, his rival, watched from across the square, envy heavy in his throat. He deals with something not of this world, he muttered. But envy feeds no man. Elias bought new ships, new servants, new lands. Each deal brought 10 more. Every handshake was golden. And yet, each night, the whispers returned. Sometimes he woke to find the coin on his chest though he had locked it away. Sometimes, in the stillness before dawn, he saw shadows kneeling at the edge of his bed. Faces shaped like smoke, watching him breathe. Whisper, female. Trade well, child of Kande. The balance is beautiful. He would sit up, drenched in sweat. And when he looked at the mirror, his reflection smiled a heartbeat too late. A month later, Elias held a grand feast. Music filled his courtyard, laughter spilling into the night. Wine flowed like rivers, dancers swirled around torches. He felt untouchable, reborn. Okoro approached, his smile sharp as a knife. Tell me, Elias, he said, which god did you charm to turn ruin into riches? Elias chuckled. No gods. Just hard work. But as he raised his cup, the black coin burned against his thigh. He reached into his pocket, his fingers came back wet with blood. The coin had fused to his skin. He slipped away from the crowd, down the empty corridor. The world felt heavy, as if time itself had slowed. From the darkness came the familiar whisper. You called us. We answered. Do you think success grows without soil to drink from? Elias clenched his fist. You promised me fortune. And you promised us pieces of yourself. The trade continues. The air thickened. Flames flickered, bowing to unseen breath. He screamed, but no sound left his throat, only a rush of wind. When he looked at his reflection in the polished door, his eyes were no longer brown, they were pale, like morning fog. The next day, Bako found him pale and trembling. Sir, you look unwell, he said. I'm fine, Elias replied. Success demands its price. He forced a laugh, but even his laughter sounded borrowed. As he walked through the marketplace, every shadow turned its head to follow him. He ignored them. Pride still weighed more than fear. That evening, he returned to Mama Abibi. The fire in her hut burned low, her face was grave. I warned you, she said softly. You can't trade with those who remember eternity. Elias dropped to his knees. Tell me how to stop them. She looked at him with pity. The river can't refuse the sea, child. You can only decide what it will drown first, your gold, or your soul. He shook his head. There must be another way. There is, she whispered, handing him a small clay jar sealed with wax. When you hear them calling you in daylight, open this and run. Inside is silence, the last sound that keeps them away. He took the jar, confused but desperate. Then he left, rain falling hard, thunder rolling beyond the hills. As he stepped through the mud, he saw faces reflected in the puddles, hundreds of them, watching, smiling. He blinked and they were gone. The ancestors had kept their word. Elias was rich beyond his imagination. But the richer he became, the more of himself disappeared into the whispers. And in the distance, the drums of the dead began to call again. The sea no longer sang to Elias Kande. It whispered. Each whisper carried a name, his, over and over, folded into the wind. He had everything men dreamed of, ships, gold, servants, and power. But every night when he closed his eyes, something watched him from the dark. The coin on his chest glowed faintly in the moonlight, pulsing with a heartbeat that wasn't his own. He could feel it under his skin now, like a parasite finding roots. He tried to forget it. He tried to ignore the voices. But the dead are patient. And the ancestors, they always collect what they're owed. Bako's cough began softly. At first, Elias dismissed it. But within days, the boy's skin had turned pale, his eyes dull as washed coins. He could no longer stand. Sir, it's cold. Even under the sun, it's cold. Elias knelt beside him. You'll be fine, Bako. You've worked hard. You'll see, soon, all of this will pass. I dream of the sea, sir. The waves sound like voices calling. Then, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Bako went still. No breath. No pulse. Only the faint shimmer of silver dust on his eyelids, like stars that had fallen there. Elias stumbled back, horror freezing his blood. The coin on his chest pulsed faster, warmer, alive with a terrible joy. The ancestors had taken their first dividend. He ran into the storm. Rain crashed like applause against the rooftops. Lightning split the sky, and he screamed into the thunder. Enough. You said my soul, not theirs. From the darkness, a voice answered, layered with many tones, male and female together. A man's soul is never his alone. It binds to those he loves. Elias fell to his knees, fists clenched. Then take me instead. Leave them. Too soon. You have not finished the trade. The world around him shifted. The ground rippled like fabric. Through the rain, he saw things that defied reason, markets without sun, ghostly ships sailing through smoke, merchants with eyes made of flame trading shadows for breath. Every one of them wore his face. Elias, horse. What is this place? Ancestor spirit. Your empire, multiplied. Your promise, fulfilled. Endless exchange. He screamed until the world snapped back. He was alone again, drenched, trembling, and half mad. He knew only one place left to run. He burst into Mama Abibi's hut. Her fire burned low, her body trembling under a heavy shawl. Her eyes lifted, already knowing why he'd come. Help me, he begged. I'll pay anything to end this. She sighed. The cost was written the moment you called them. Her old fingers traced circles in ash. But maybe we can bargain back a heartbeat. She poured palm oil into the fire. The flame turned blue. Then green. Then black. She began to chant, words too old for the living tongue. The coin screamed. It shrieked inside Elias's chest, a sound like metal twisting in bone. The shadows of the hut writhed against the walls. Ancestor spirits, choral whisper. You cannot recall what was freely given. Mama Abibi, defiant. Then I recall his name. His true name. Her voice thundered, filled with something larger than her frail frame. For a moment, the whispers faltered, the air growing still. Elias, pleading. Please, end this. Ancestor spirit, cold. There is no end. Only balance. The walls cracked, and the fire roared outward. When Elias opened his eyes, the hut was gone. Only smoke. And Mama Abibi's walking stick lay split in two. He stumbled through the rain, the sky blazing white above him. Under his skin, dark veins crawled upward like roots, pulsing with each beat of the coin. He reached the docks, madness in his eyes. The great warehouse, the heart of his empire, loomed ahead. He kicked the doors open. Inside, gold gleamed, mountains of it. And at the very center, the black coin floated above the floor, burning with an inner flame. He ran toward it. Show yourself, he shouted. If it's my soul you want, take it. Ancestor spirit, echoing. We accept. The coin dropped into his palm. It melted into his skin, sinking deep, becoming part of him. Pain exploded through his body. His scream shook the rafters as fire burst around him, consuming everything. The warehouse burned, a pyre to pride and greed. And when it collapsed, nothing was left but ash and a single footprint scorched into the earth. They had collected their due. But the debt of a soul never truly ends. Morning came quietly to the coast of Calabia. The storm had spent itself, the air was washed clean, the sea glassy and still. Where Elias Kande's empire once stood, only ash whispered across the sand. His ships were gone. His gold was gone. And his name had begun to fade from the tongues that once praised it. Fishermen found the ruins first. They saw the scorched ground, the blackened timbers, and a single coin lying half buried in the soot. It was cold to the touch, heavy as stone, and when they lifted it, a faint hum lingered in the air. One of them, the merchant Okoro, stared at it for a long moment. So this is what fortune costs, he murmured, and dropped it back into the sand. By the following day, the market buzzed again. Ships unloaded cargo. Children laughed. And not one trader could remember the name of the man whose warehouse had burned by the bay. Only one woman did not forget. Bako's sister, a quiet seamstress who had lost her brother to the strange fever, dreamed every night of a figure standing on the water. Half smoke, half moonlight, a lantern in his hand. In her dream she whispered, "Who are you?" The figure answered softly, "A man who traded his name for a promise." Each morning she awoke with the taste of salt on her lips and the sound of waves in her ears. And by afternoon, she could remember neither the dream nor the name. Far beyond the living tide, in a place where the sea meets shadow, Elias Kande opened his eyes. He stood within a market made of mist. Stalls built from bone and smoke lined an endless shore. Traders moved silently, their faces blurred, their hands exchanging things unseen. He recognized them all. Ancestors who had walked before him, and others who had bargained foolishly as he had. A voice, deep. Ancestor spirit, male. Welcome, merchant. Your trade never ends. Elias, quietly. If this is eternity, let me buy back what I lost. Ancestor spirit, female. You already own it. Look. Before him rose a fleet of ghostly ships. Their sails shimmered like glass, their cargo was his memory, his laughter, his pride, his love. Each ship bore his mark. Each whispered his bargains. Elias. Then let me steer them, at least. Ancestor spirit, soft. You shall. That is your bargain. The ancestors turned away. Elias stepped onto the nearest ship, its deck warm beneath his feet. The wheel turned on its own, and the sea of souls stretched out before him, endless, waiting. Back in the world of men, sailors began to tell stories. Late at night, when fog crawled across the water, some claimed to see a lantern far out to sea. A lone ship, black against the moon, sailing where no wind blew. They said the captain wore no face, only shadows that moved like smoke. They said he hailed passing vessels with a voice that echoed in the bones. Sailor 1. If he calls your name, never answer. He doesn't trade in goods, he trades in years. Sailor 2. They call him the bargain man. The sailors would laugh nervously, spit into the fire, and fall silent. Listening to the wind whistle through the masts like whispered warnings. They say the ancestors do not punish. They simply keep accounts. And for every coin gained too easily, a life somewhere pays the balance. So if one night you find yourself counting riches beneath a silent moon, and you feel a pulse in your pocket that is not your own, remember Elias Kande. The man who bought the world and sold his soul by weight. Listen closely. The sea still whispers his name. And the bargain never ends.